Well, let's get more insights now. Uche Okorie, the president of the Nigerian Association in the Australian Capital Territory, joins me from Canberra via Zoom. Thank you very much for joining me, Uche Okorie. Now, at this point, yes, despite the fact that Australians will go to the polls on Saturday, there has been concern about the fact that the government is especially the lawmakers, are predominantly white. 96% of lawmakers in Australia, in the Australian cabinet, are white, and in the government as well, despite the fact that Australia is a multicultural society, a multicultural country. What's your take on this? How does this affect the elections on Saturday?
Thank you very much for having me. To start with, we need to understand that the issue of diversity in Australian politics is one that predates this current election. I think it has its roots in the White Australia policy. We have to understand that Australia as a nation only, opened up its electoral system in the 70s. Like up until the 70s, white migrants were the dominant people that came to Australia, like other Europeans, and because there was a policy called the White Australian policy. So the lack of diversity in politics can be attributed to that. The other thing is that Australia as well has a lack of diversity even in terms of female representation. Mm-hmm. And compared to other democracies like the US, Canada, or even the UK. The UK they went through a period where they had similar problems, the Conservative Party, Labour Party and all that, and they kind of put in place some policies to encourage the diversification of the political space. But that hasn't necessarily happened in Australia. There has been some gains though. But the issue is that the Australian system is preferential voting, and the major parties have not really, gone behind the push for having more diverse people in politics. And you also have to understand that most migrants, like, for example, the African cohort, or maybe migrants from Nigeria, for example, that may be interested in politics and all that, are mainly first-generation migrants. So I think it's going to happen. As Australia is just 200 years old, like in context from federation. It's way older with the Aboriginal population that has been here for over 50,000 years. Mm-hmm. But when you talk about the Australian Federation, it's about 200 years old, thereabouts. So, and I think as time goes on, we would see an increased representation of people from diverse parts of the world, because Australia is actually very multicultural, and the lawmaking institutions don't actually reflect the population, where at least 1 in every 5 person is a migrant in Australia. Yes.
Well, it's instructive that you had to make that last statement. But looking at the lack of diversity, and of course with female representation, what do you think is the role of political parties in Australia in all of this? How can political parties come together to ensure that a certain percentage is reserved for those who are not, like you mentioned, migrants, who are migrants coming into Australia to vie for positions? And of course, what percentage should also go to women to ensure participation?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, in this election, we had a former Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Julia Gillard, who came out in support of the opposition leader, Anthony Albanese, and and some other female, like there's a female candidate that was representing. She was former ACT minister, chief minister, Christina Keneally, and she made a pitch and said for years she's been advocating that both sides of politics, like the Labour people and the Liberals, make it a part of their political platform to actually encourage women. They should have like a 50-50, representation where the positions are split. So that conversation is still currently ongoing. The current prime minister, part of the problem that he has, or that was, that he has been criticized for, and his party, is the fact that women think they think he has a woman problem, in the sense that the Liberal Party doesn't really cater for women. Now that's debatable, but the perception is there, of course, and it's something that I think both parties have to go beyond rhetorics and actually have like an affirmative action. If I would borrow the words of Julia Gillard, have an affirmative action that, look, if we are putting out, say, 10 positions, we're going to split it 50-50. It's a different conversation if we have enough people or women of a multicultural background that will be interested in taking the step forward and asking to be counted, because there are many factors there as well at play. Yeah.
All right, Uche Okorie, President of the Nigerian Association in the Australian capital. Thank you so much for talking to us at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye.